if I were one of the what if one of the bachelors on that show goes to ABC and says, I don't want you to air this because you either deceived me or you were negligent in your background search. And I am not going to be portrayed as somebody who is romancing her. And I would not have done it had I known, and you shouldn't have put me in that position. And if you do air it, I will sue you for fraud. What about that? Mark, Taylor Frankie Paul is a big reality star, and there is a lot on the line right now with her. Her kids are on the line. Her ABC Bachelorette show is on the line, and her reality show, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, is on the line. And I got to say, after reading a document that TMZ obtained from the Department of Children and Family Services in Utah, I don't see how the reality show, how the Bachelorette ABC, how they possibly can keep her on the air. And I got to say, it would shock me if she retains any custody of these kids. She is utterly off the rails when you read this report.
It's, I read it this morning, and I have to say, the only word I can say is it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. This is a, 10 or 12 page document filed by the Utah Attorney General, who's representing the Department of Children
and Family Services.
And it goes through in fairly exhaustive detail a number of incidents, and each one is more heartbreaking than the next. Everybody I think is familiar, at least I was somewhat anecdotally familiar with the incident with the chair, but there are some others here that are just astonishing. Yeah, the ones where an argument where one of the kids is in, mind you, she's got two kids, two different dads. And
three kids, two different dads.
And one kid is taking care of the other kid, and these are not
we should say the 8-year-old is taking care of the 2-year-old.
Yeah, and they interview the 8-year-old. The 8-year-old is
changing diapers for the 2-year-old
every morning and preparing the formula. Now, I love self-sufficiency with 8-year-olds, but one of the reasons and one of the things that just tugs at your heartstrings is when these kids are confronted with their family members, they don't run to mom. There's one there where they run to the aunt, and that then sets her off. Not the aunt, but the mother, in terms of, I think the word they used was dysregulates, and she storms out of the house.
Right. And it's not just the aunt, it's the nanny. So whenever the kids were seeking comfort, they would go to either the nanny or the aunt. And it just speaks volumes for as to what is going on between Taylor Frankie Paul and her kids. It doesn't just seem like she cares more about herself than the kids, but Department of Children and Family Services literally says that. They say that she does not seem concerned about how her conduct is impacting the kids. She is focused solely on how these things are impacting her. So there is no level of consciousness of what she's doing to these kids.
Well, my experience, at least, and I've done this. I tried not to, but I've done it on occasions. Most famously with Michael Jackson, and I've also with Chris Brown and others. Is when you're dealing with these child protective service agencies, they usually err on the side of kind of going a little overboard because they figure, the kids come first, and that they tend to want to err on that side and be very conservative. When you read the detail in this one, it's talk about the patience of Job. They have incident after incident, and they try to get releases for the therapist notes, and then you you read between the lines and actually written in the lines is the therapist says she wasn't really engaging. She was just kind of going through the motions. And the
Right,
mother
right, which is a huge thing. But by the way, we got to explain that before you get to the therapist, you get to February, you get to 2023 where she threw the metal chairs at Dakota and then inadvertently hit one of the kids. And there are domestic violence charges against her. You get to 2026 where she's in bed with Dakota arguing, ends up trying to choke him, shoves him into a window. This is all in front of the 2-year-old kid. Same day she comes back, she throws a cell phone at him, climbs in the passenger side of his car, kicks the center console, squeezes his face. He pushes her, she hits her head, and she is unrelenting. And at one point, he was holding the child. We know this. In fact, we're about to put this story up. She's holding the child. He's holding the child. And she is just going at him. And he says, we can't fight with, I'm holding the child. And to the effect, she says, put the child down and let's have at it. I mean, she has no regulation, no regulator.
And they use that word with frequency. She is in distress, obviously. I mean, they talk about master of the obvious, but this kind of slow-moving car accident. All I can think of is the effect, because they do detail to some degree the kids' reaction.
Yeah.
This is for these kids. I can't even. Well, I can. You know where this is headed with the kids. I mean, it's an awful kind of a template to watch or read and then imagine what is happening there and the trauma that they are undergoing by seeing this, and the kind of framework of this household is just. And this is not. So people understand it. You don't have time to read the entire document. A lot of times when I read documents, it pops out at you immediately that somebody's trying to make it worse than it seems.
Right.
That is not my takeaway from this document.
Mine either.
Right? I mean, this is kind of just the facts, ma'am, kind of reporting on something, almost to the point where you're reading and you're saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, as you're going through it, is this really happening? Because it just gets worse and worse and worse as you read it.
And you think that like a light bulb at a point would go off in her head saying, what am I doing? Because, without getting into detail, they're saying this has done damage to the kids. And you would think that light bulb goes off, but they are saying she is utterly self-aware. She is only concerned about her own view of this. She thinks that people are coming at her for all of this because of her status, as she puts it, meaning I'm a celebrity.
Yeah, use that term. Quoting from her. Accurate that she says they're only coming after me because of my status, which if she said it, that in and of itself shows a shocking lack of awareness.
Yeah, and so this is the part that really gets me, that the department, she has been in custody fights with both of her exes, the fathers of her kids, Dakota and Tate. And the Department of Children and Family Services, through the Attorney General, is asking to get jurisdiction away from family court and bring it into juvenile court, where because they believe she is abusing and or neglecting these children and failing to protect them, and that they want jurisdiction so they can appoint a guardian ad litem, meaning a representative for the kids, and some kind of supervision. But when we found this out and published it, her team told us this is routine, that this is somehow routine that DCFS does this. I got to tell you, I've covered DCFS for decades, and I have never seen DCFS going in and asking the family court to surrender jurisdiction because it's so serious that the juvenile court and DCFS needs to manage it. And we just got a statement from the representatives of Tate and Dakota saying exactly the same thing, saying that this is highly, highly unusual, and this is from their reps, that that they don't want to remain silent, as they put it, where this has become a public spectacle, and that she is minimizing the gravity of the actions by DCFS. And as they say, the petition filed by DCFS this week is not a routine transition to juvenile court or an opportunity for personal growth. DCFS has asked the court to find that the children are abused and has requested an expedited hearing concerning their immediate protection. So there is nothing ordinary about what DCFS is doing here.
That statement that you just read, I don't know specifically who authored it, but it captures exactly the reaction when you read the document. Because if you read the document,
this is from their lawyer, just so you know.
Yeah, well, whoever that is, I don't know the name. We should give a shout out, because that person kind of accurately captured the tenor, if you will, of this filing. There's nothing routine about this filing. If anything, it jumps off the page at you just how patient it appears they've been, and just how dire the situation is, and the lack of self-awareness by her. Frankly, there's somebody needs to give her a wake-up call, and she needs to understand that these are her kids and she needs to deal with it. And it isn't a function of somebody else. This is about as loud and kind of the end of the road before she gets embroiled in stuff that she's never going to be able to get herself out of.
Now, but before we go on, I think you cannot just look at her in a vacuum. That she has these two guys, and I don't know as much about Tate as I do Dakota, but it's not like Dakota is just this victim here, because he gets embroiled the way she does, and there is a level, I think, frankly, with both men, of this attraction to the camera and publicity. And, I gotta say that, sometimes, somebody finds their match. And I'm not saying they're equivalent in terms of abuse or anything like that, but she should stay away from Dakota for the rest of her life, with the exception of exchanging kids if that ever happens. I got to tell you, it is the most toxic relationship. And when the family judge heard them over Zoom, and there was talk about, do we want to make this private? Mark, I have never heard a judge say this. This is in family court. They gave the media the right to watch a custody fight in family court. They always lock the doors. I have covered family court for decades. They always lock the doors when it comes to the kids. They open this up to the media. And when someone raised the issue, the judge said, you guys have put this out to the world. So the notion of saying that there should be any privacy here is absurd, because you guys have exposed all of this. And the judge basically said, yeah, the media should watch it because you've let the media watch this all the way through. I've never seen that. I've never, ever seen that.
It's such an interesting point. We have a courtroom in our office building, and that courtroom is almost exclusively rented by family law lawyers who want to keep things private. They want a rent-a-judge. They do not want things public. Try getting at family law records sometime. Try getting at anything surrounding this. It takes a literal act of Congress to get at it. Here you've got the exact opposite, where it's on public display, and it's obviously exacerbating a already really bad, to use your term, toxic situation. And the guardian ad litem process means that basically they're saying kind of a pox on both your houses. We don't think that the father or the fathers can deal with this. We know that the mother can't deal with this. We're not even going to the point where we're going to say necessarily that the aunt can have it, although it would seem to me, based on some of the anecdotal evidence, meaning when they say they see that one of the kids is in distress and the kid runs towards the aunt, it would seem like that's, and you mentioned the nanny, it would seem that at least somebody is providing some real-time support and love and affection.
Which gets totally undone with these volcanic arguments. So, okay, so now I want you to put your media hat on, which you I want to give you credit for that because you understand the media as well as most people I know. You are very savvy when it comes to this. So there are two television shows here. One is The Bachelorette, which has already been filmed, where she is the bachelorette and has to choose among a group of bachelors on who she wants and wants maybe even to marry. And the second is kind of a Real Housewives type show called The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And that's a show she has been on. They ceased production at a point because we're told that some of the cast members did not want to film with her because she was so off the rails. They have now resumed production of that film because it seemed, before we got this document, it seemed that things may have settled down a little bit, and they resumed filming. So let's take them one at a time because I see these two shows very differently. With Secret Lives of...
Let me take... Yes.
You choose one.
Yeah. If you see The Bachelorette, I think at some point somebody, whether it's ABC or whether it's an affiliate or whether they maybe, potentially do they sell it to another streamer, I think that is going to be released. I just think somebody's going to make the calculation that they could do it. And for a variety of reasons.
So Disney owns it. So you're going to say Disney's going to sell it to somebody else?
Potentially, they could sell it to somebody else, or they would place it. The real question for me is, and I won't reveal why I think this, but do they put it on ABC, meaning their network, or do they make the decision to put it on a different platform? I don't think it's a question of do they shelve this altogether.
Okay, so we should explain that they shot the show, and a few months ago, it was set to premiere on a Sunday. On the Friday before, we obtained the video of her hurling bar stools at Dakota and inadvertently hitting one of her kids when it ricocheted. And within 2 hours, ABC said, we're not going to air this show. So now that there have been rumblings in the last month, because ABC lost a fortune, millions and millions and millions of dollars. And, this is not a climate where media companies can afford to lose that kind of money.
Yeah, this is not a climate where media companies are flushing money.
No,
correct.
At all. So, we had been hearing that they wanted to air it again. And the problem with The Bachelorette, the way I see it, is you are watching a woman who is presenting herself as this, cool, sexy, together person, kind of courting and being courted by these guys who have no idea what is behind all of it and what all of the baggage is. And in a way, the argument, I think, is the guys are victims of the studio for either not vetting her properly or allowing the show to go on and her to be cast knowing her background. It's one of those two. But either way, you got these unsuspecting guys who are being portrayed as romancing her, one of whom she presumably picks, and she's a powder keg. And so that seems to be a difficult situation for Disney to either put the show on ABC, put the show on Hulu, which it owns, or to sell it and make money off of it so that somebody else can do it, because it's pretty transparent.
Except that I think what the kind of discussion, the internal discussion is at Disney is this. Look, where this is literally divorced from her personal life. We filmed this. We didn't show it coming on the heels of the incident, which, by the way, in the 12-page document that you're looking at is detailed. That incident, I believe they cited even the date of it and what happened. And so on the heels of that, it was to some degree distasteful. Now, kind of fast forward 5 months later, I think that there is a discussion going on as to, do we put this on the main network? Do we put this on Hulu, or do we just
there was a discussion. We know that.
Yeah.
It's just, are they going to do it? It's
been reignited. And actually, this filing, I think, has triggered that kind of it triggered or reignited the discussion as to what they do with it, because it does kind of amplifies the interest in this story.
It amplifies the interest, but, it presents a false image of somebody that is so obvious now that we know that, if I were what if one of the bachelors on that show goes to ABC and says, I don't want you to air this because you either deceived me or you were negligent in your background search, and I am not going to be portrayed as somebody who is romancing her, and I would not have done it had I known, and you shouldn't have put me in that position. And if you do air it, I will sue you for fraud. What about that?
I don't think that has much legs.
Really?
I don't think that has much legs. I mean, as somebody who's been doing battle with the kind of the reality reality arena, hat tip to Bethany for coining the reality reckoning. But there is a degree to which these kinds of slow speed crashes are the currency of the reality world. So I get that. I don't think that somebody who is a contestant who's basically signed one of these unenforceable releases is going to gain a whole lot of traction on that basis. I could see a different argument being made that might get out of the releases or get around the releases. But the more intriguing kind of discussion, at least for me, is what does the corporation do when they're faced with this idea? They know they can monetize this thing. They know, to your point, I don't think it's 7 figures. I think it's an 8-figure decision here as to what the potential revenue is from the show.
Right. I think you're right.
Yeah, and if you're
although I got to say, if you're a sponsor that would have ordinarily sponsored that show, I think a lot of them are going to run for the hills.
That is probably, I don't know how to say this delicately. That is precisely what you would imagine hypothetically is the discussion. If we put this on the main network, and you've hit it, Harvey, are we going to end up antagonizing our sponsors? Are the sponsors going to want to pay to be affiliated with this? Or are we going to create more problems? For an 8-figure short money, are we going to end up taking a 9-figure hit in people who have to shy away from us, or the pushback that we get? You said the quiet part out loud. That is precisely what's driving the discussion.
So, okay. So I think they're going to have a huge problem airing this show now, because, again, it's one thing for her to fight her ex. It's another thing for DCFS to come out and say she's either abused or neglected these kids. And I think that's a deal breaker, but we'll see.
But what you now contrast that with the other show.
That's where I want to go. So The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, that's a different kind of show, because that's not, nobody would be deceived there. This would get aired and hashed out on that show, where she's basically putting a spotlight on all these things that she's done. And these other women on the show can comment on it, and the guys are on the show as well. And so, it becomes a free-for-all, and it seems less problematic, at least to me, of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives continuing than The Bachelorette, to me.
Depends on who we're talking about. If it is the producers or the network, so to speak, that's airing it, the platform that's airing it, I tend to agree with you. But what if she says, or what if her lawyer says, you don't want any part of this, you don't want this airing? God knows what's in there. God knows they're trying to divest family court and get you over into the juvenile quasi-criminal court. Do you really want this stuff out there? Because no matter what you say, it's already become a public spectacle, and now you're going to have other items out there that maybe you never calculated or thought about, that some judge or some attorney general, deputy attorney general is playing for the court as, here's exhibit A, B, C.
What if she is so self-involved she's willing to risk that and thinks it's good TV?
Right. If she may do that, if her lawyer is allowing her to do that, I would venture to say that the lawyer has probably already viewed or has some kind of a veto power, because that's a very slippery slope if you don't know what they've got, what's in the outtakes. And from being in the media landscape for as long as you have, I think you would be hard pressed to get the production company to let you view everything and have any kind of a veto power over what they show or what they don't show.
Talking about what the media knows, that I want to kind of finally kind of button up with that. This weirdly reminds me, it's almost a mirror to me of the Ray Rice case with the NFL. That if you remember back with Ray Rice, there was video of him pulling his unconscious then fiance out of an elevator, but nobody saw what happened inside the elevator. There was a criminal prosecution, and the video of him inside the elevator was available in that case. The NFL, after investigating, because they saw what happened outside the elevator and also knew he had been charged, the NFL and Roger Goodell gave Ray Rice a 2-game suspension. We got the video. And when we got the video, they did the hand-wringing, the shock, and then they threw the book at him. And, we challenged them because, what's going on? What's going on?
As we talk about,
I know we shouldn't. This is not for children, Mark.
Yes, this is not for children. Right.
So with Ray Rice, we challenged them and said, you guys ended up getting this video. At least that's the way it had come to us. And they were saying, well, we hadn't seen it or whatever. Did they? Did they not? I still don't know. But when they found out, they threw the book at Ray Rice. With Taylor Frankie Paul, right. ABC knew about the incident. They had just the video had never come to light until we got it. Now, did ABC have access? Did they want to see it? Did they see it? Did they not see it? I don't know. But it gets to the issue of due diligence, and that's something I think, as I understand it, you've been looking at in some of the cases you're handling. So, what's the status of due diligence with reality shows right now? Do they really look, or do they sometimes turn a blind eye because it would just be so good to have that person on, or what?
That's exactly, they actually combine those two. They do the due diligence and they turn the blind eye. That's what's so astonishing. There are decisions that are made in the reality TV world where it's the expression I always use is, we know this is good TV. I know that's not shocking, it's not breaking news, but they know, they do the due diligence. So to your Ray Rice example, you'd have to believe that the NFL, a multi-zillion dollar, billion dollar operation, didn't know about that video. Of course, that kind of begs belief. And as soon as they did, then all of a sudden the blowback is what caused it. That is, I think, the calculation that was made here. I think it's the calculation, it's just human nature to some degree. Once it becomes public, then what do? You only have so many options: do it or kick the can down the road. Here they kick the can down the road, but if I had to bet, I would say,
and it bit him in the ass.
Yeah, it certainly did, and it does the same in some of these other shows on a much less scale where people are legitimately hurt. I think the person who has more control over the Mormon Wives show is her and her people. I think that they're the ones who could be a problem there if they wanted to be. I don't think it's going to be the other cast members in that case.
Yeah, I mean, this is really fascinating, but man, I'll tell you, when I read this, wow, is it troubling, right?
Yeah, look, you sent it to me and I hadn't seen it yet, and I read it and I was struck, and it's should have a link in the pod.
Yeah.
I invite people to read it themselves.
Yeah, it's shocking. Okay, my friend, I will see you next week.
Okay, thanks, Harvey.
Bye-bye.